Okay, now let us talk about production and the production process. Okay, we may have learned that the production process has three phases. There's pre-production, production, and post-production. So let us look at it in terms of a process. Okay, so what is production? Okay, one of my favorite phrases is that the mark of a genius is production. Production is the mark of a genius. As my little joke, the mark of a genius. But what really and truly is production? We can summarize production as the coordination of goods and services to achieve a certain or desired outcome. So, the coordination of goods and services to achieve a desired outcome. This is production. The coordination of goods and services to achieve a desired outcome. So, let us look at it in terms of a diagram. First, you have on this side, this in the middle, and this at the end. The process of production can be summed up as inputs, process, and outputs. Inputs are coordinated in the process which produces the outputs, which the outputs can go to the market, can go to the home, can go to manufacturing, and some outputs may be waste, and some outputs may find their way back into the inputs or yeah. Okay, so the production process can be looked at in this way. Inputs, the coordination of inputs through a process to give you outputs. We can break it down a little bit mathematically as well. So breaking it down mathematically, the production process, we have the inputs which we will call the x's, right? The process which we will call f of x, and the output which we will call y. So x here are the inputs, the inputs, or the independent variables. That means that these exist independent of the production process. If you were to make juice, then sugar stands on its own, water stands on its own, and the labor stands on its own. So these are the x's. So you would have x sub 0, x1, x2. All these are the different elements of the inputs of your system. Then you would have f of x, which would be the process. How do you, the optimum balance between these x's, right? So the best optimum combination between x0, x1, and x2 will be the f of x. How do they come together? How do you coordinate the process? The irrigation, the fertilizer application, weed control, pest control, cultural practices. How do you incorporate that into bringing your processes, your inputs together under the process, right? F of x. And then you will have y. Y, I like to call it, is the reason you do what you do. Y is production, Y is the output. So the output could correspond with x0, you'll have y0, x1, y1, x2, y2. So then you would have this f of x is equal to y. And on a mathematical level, this is the production function. And we have just looked at the production process. One example of the production process, if we have to consider this major term in the world right now, food security. Okay? So food security, looking at it from f of x is y, right? x0, we could work it back. So we say f of x is equal to y. So y1, what do we want? y0, what do we want? Okay, we want to satisfy the necessities of our population. So we say nutritional necessities of national importance, right? So that's for all the men, women, and children growing in your country. Y1 would be, the first point is the point of losses. You know, you may have crop losses, you may have mechanical losses during transportation, you may also have theft, you may have natural disasters, and you want to cater for that. So Y1 is for crop and livestock losses. Y2 would be for storage in terms of national disasters. Storage. And it may be necessary to have a storage over a period of maybe a year or 2 years, you know, a certain cyclical period which would allow for the replenishment of stock and the disposal of stock which has been stored over time. But storage for emergencies, so that the nation may be able to survive over that certain cyclical period. Y3 can be for visitors, to accommodate the amount of visitors we have coming to our country in terms of tourism and new opportunities. So Y3 for the visiting population. Y4 could be for manufacturing. And Y5, exports. So if we now consider what are the resources necessary to produce these, you know, if these are your outputs here, these go back to Y or go back to your outputs. What do you need to do here to get to there? Okay, and the steps involved. So this can guide your thinking in terms of, okay, you want to produce the necessities of the population, so you may want to define the quantities and the qualities of this nutrition. What are the sources of crops and livestock that you can get them from, and which ones have high value, high economic value, right? Then Y1, you now thinking of the amount of production you want to have to maintain an industry, and also to put a contingency plan in place which will allow you to carry out enough for your crop losses.